Hey folks, Quill18 here, and welcome to a quick little glance at patch 1.4 for Europa Universalis 4. So today, Conquest of Paradise was released. It's the first big expansion for EU4, and it included lots of stuff, but really, most of the stuff that is going to affect Europa Universalis 4 players today is actually coming as part of a free patch. It's quite large. Really, Conquest of Paradise by itself, the expansion pack, all it gives you is the ability to play with a randomized new world, which is very cool. Some people think it's amazing, some people don't care. It's going to be kind of neat, I think. And the other thing is it lets you play as a colony, right? The new colonial government type that you can implement in the game. Well, this lets you play as that, but I believe that the feature actually exists as part of the patch itself in terms of spinning off a colony. So if you colonize the new world and you want to create a colony over there, that I believe is included in the patch by itself. So I'm going to go through the patch notes here, and we'll see what's new. New diplomatic dependency called protectorate, it says. So what does that mean? Well, it's basically like a vassal, except it's a vassal that's incredibly backwards to you. If they're too far away tech-wise, then they become a protectorate. There's a couple of different tweaks. Big thing is, I believe the protectorate themselves get the 25% tech discount. So it allows them to catch up in the game. They're very far behind. You're coming over them, you're taking them under your wing, and yeah, they've got to give up a bunch of their trade power and so on and so forth, but they get a massive tech discount so they can catch up, and then once they westernize, they automatically become independent again, and probably they can, do a war of independence as well, sure. Climate overhaul. So, every zone in the world now has a climate associated to it, temperate, desert, jungle, that sort of thing. I may have the zones mixed up, but, that sort of thing. And the idea with this is, well, I was going to say it's easier to colonize the things that match your own nation's zone, but it's more like things outside of your zone are harder to colonize. So if you're temperate, colonizing the jungle is hard. Now, I think this has less to do with affecting the great powers, who are, tend to be fairly colonial, although maybe it'll make some parts of Africa harder for them to colonize, and it was a difficult thing to do. But I think what it does is it opens up more colonial options for non-European civilizations, for example, African civilizations colonizing in Africa, for example. So they can retweak the balance to make it easier for those people to colonize those areas that they're kind of native to, which is kind of interesting. Succession war is no longer automatic. So if there were royal marriages and there was a succession crisis, someone dying without an heir kind of thing, in the old system it's kind of dumb. People sort of all get sucked into war, and even if you don't necessarily want it to, just because you've got a claim, well, now you get a choice of whether you kind of jump into war or not, which will certainly be helpful if you've got a claim. If you're playing a small nation, you've got a claim somewhere, and France also has one. Well, you may not want to tangle with France, for example. I'm happy that the old tariff system is gone because it was kind of confusing. I've read the page for it, the math for it a few times, and I was like, I still don't really get it. So now, because it was weird. It was like there was taxes, there was trade, there was production. Anyway, so now, yes, colonial nations give a percentage of all their income in tariffs. It starts at 10%. Now, you can increase the tariff rate. If you are the sort of overlord, you can change that tariff rate. But of course, the more the tariffs go up, the greater their liberty desire goes up. So it ties into that sort of independence movement with your colonies. And yeah, so here we go, liberty desire, in terms of how free they want to be. They can declare war on their overlords at 50%, and they have to do it automatically at 100%, which is kind of interesting because one of the bookmarks that you can choose, for example, the 13 colonies, exists in North America. This is the thing that would eventually become the United States of America. And at that bookmark, they start at 50%, but ultimately things might happen that pushes up to 100%. And even if you're not ready for war, your people sort of demand it, and it's kind of fun. So as the overlord, you want to manage some of this, and as the sort of vassal, you want to also manage it in a slightly different way. There are decisions you can take that increase or decrease the liberty desire depending on how much you want to fuel an independence movement in your own nation. You can now abandon a colony, which is actually kind of handy. Westernization has changed. So a few things have gone on. It's interesting that it no longer requires non-negative stability. So yeah, you couldn't do it before if you were already negative. Now you can. And now it's a lot of the mechanics of it. It used to be really annoying because what it would do is it would knock you down to -3 stability and triple the cost of increasing the stability, and you had to go back into positive before you could complete Westernization or all these events, and it was awkward. And it's not necessarily going to be significantly easier, but I think it's going to be a little bit more, I don't know, like a little more predictable or manageable in a way. I think overall this is going to make Westernization a little bit easier, although not easy mode either. The +5 RR, that's a revolt risk, so you're going to have a lot of revolt risk while you're doing the Westernizing, which of course makes tons and tons of sense. And then, yeah, it no longer depends on becoming positive in terms of stability. And was it positive, or did you have to get to +3? I think you just had to go positive. And yeah, instead, it grabs 10 from each power. So admin, diplomatic, military power. And then when it's collected a full 5,000, then it modified by tech group. So 5,000 is the expensive thing. I think that's if you're Native American, represents one of the maximum costs. If you're going from, say, Eastern to Western, it's like 2,000, which is not actually that bad. And yeah, there will still be plenty of events and different things like that. But overall, probably, I feel like it's going to be a little bit better. I haven't done it yet, so we'll see how it goes. More achievements, hooray. Map modes to view, so you can view the climate, the trade goods. You can see what areas of the world get the harshest winter, or actually what is currently in winter, which to me, when I was playing as Russia, would have been very, very handy, because you often get your troops caught in an area where there's like a heavy winter and you're like, I just got to get out of here. And also federations. Federations are a new agreement that Native Americans can arrange with each other. It's kind of like, it's sort of like a loose alliance or a coalition, like it's somewhere sort of kind of in there. What's interesting is that people within a federation can still war with each other. The Paradox people on the stream pointed out that you probably don't want to be in a federation with someone who's much bigger than you, because they are going to still be able to declare war against you. Instead, it's really well suited to a bunch of nations, First Nation nations that are the same size, to maybe defend themselves against someone bigger, or, you know, the Europeans, for example. Yeah, there's a new interface tab that's actually pretty handy. Just, you know, it's just to the right of your normal military tab. That'll give you information about your subjects. Yay, loading screens, ID groups for the natives, ID groups for colonial nations, and more. There are more nations sort of in general, right? More native groups, added cocoa, yeah, a bunch of little things. The trade node balance, so there's, you know, a few tweaks here and there. The big thing is the Western Europe trade node, which funnels a lot of trade from the Americas, or from North America, into this one Western Europe trade node, which then outputs to Sevilla, Bordeaux, Antwerp, and London. And it's actually a pretty useful trade node that's going to see a lot of competition for the European powers to try to grab control of North American trade, and gives you some fun places to sort of fight out. It's just, the trade node itself is sort of sitting in the middle of the ocean, which is funny. It's not tied to any sort of land or province any other way. Although the province, I don't know, the ocean province, whatever you want to call it, ocean region that the trade node actually sits in, is considered coastal. So if you set your boats out there to, you know, patrol and to, you know, generate trade power, they won't get any attrition, which is good. So a bunch of little tweaks there. Trade, you know, some prices and little things got tweaked. I'm trying to remember if there's anything there. I mean, little things, but nothing huge to mention. Again, ideas getting nerfed, generally speaking. A few tweaks here and there to balance things out. Certainly, the scoring has changed. If the scoring is important to you, then the way that it works is a little bit different. Here's one that's definitely worth talking about. So now, every time you get a full idea group completed, it will discount techs in that category by 5%. Oh, and actually, each idea reduces it by a certain amount as well. So each idea 0.7%, but the full one is a 5%. So you're thinking, oh, that'll make teching faster. Well, not exactly, because tech costs increase slowly over time. So overall, actually, your technology costs are probably going to go up, unless you hyper-focus in one area, because for this, you would need 4 complete ideas in each category to offset that. All right, so, you know, whether it's improvement or not or whatever, but it's kind of an interesting thing. I don't think it's going to make much of a difference overall, to be honest. Okay, I really think these are 2 changes that make a lot of sense. It was really ridiculous that you could just park a giant army in a fleet of transport ships off the coast of an enemy and have it sit there for several months, and then, you know, launch it as an attack whenever you are ready to do so. So now armies in ships always take 1% attrition. I did not mean to click on that. Always take 1% attrition no matter what happens, and they don't get reinforced. So, and that, to me, that makes sense. If you got armies on boats, they're gonna get sick. It shouldn't work. I don't know. Oh yeah, the pirates won't spawn right off the coast of anywhere you can build ships, which is going to be, I think, just a nice little quality of life thing. Makes it a little less tedious to patrol quite as many places. A few little force limit changes there. One thing that's probably going to be more significant, these two changes here. Overall, there's going to be more morale damage happening, which means combat is going to end a little bit quicker with one army breaking over the other, but not necessarily losing as many people overall. There have been several tweaks in the last few patches to how morale and combat damage and different things go, and as is right now, it seems like combat is pretty highly lethal. You lose a lot of people in combat very, very quickly. So this should hopefully slow down the actual number of losses, but still make the battles sort of end decisively one way or another. Yeah, so I think this production income again has something to do maybe with the new way that some of the costs and the tariffs work. Oh, wait, if you own more than 5 provinces, same colonial region, New World, and you lose core on those provinces. Actually, that's interesting. Well, that's very interesting. They can auto-form? I think this means the colonies can auto-form under certain circumstances, which I actually wasn't aware that that could happen. That's kind of neat. So colonial nations themselves are kind of crappy at colonizing. On their colonists, giving a boost, and yeah. So it's kind of interesting. So if you play as the 13 colonies, for example, right? So this is a colony of England. And if England wants to continue sending colonists over to the New World and colonizing provinces for England, then they do it at the normal rate. But if the 13 colonies themselves want to use their own settlers to colonize, it's going to be slower. On the other hand, the net colonial stuff going on for the parent is still going to be a giant increase, because they're still going to have their own colonists plus their colonies' colonists. That sounds a little redundant, but it's going to work. Colonies properly auto-core when they become a city. That is very, very nice, because I always found it very tedious. It's like, oh, colony completes. Now you've got to remember to go to the screen, click the button to start coring. Just ludicrous, because, I mean, it's effectively free to core all those things anyway, so just make it the next step. Very, 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 very handy. Cores of annexed nations now take twice as long to disappear. Wow. I mean, they already took a long time to disappear. Oh, no. Okay, annexed nations. Oh, so potential, like, nationalist rebellions might stick around for longer. Well, that's really interesting. So if you annex, so if you win a war against a small nation and just gobble them up completely. I assume, because it says annexed nations. I don't know. We'll have to see, actually, in game. Reduce core decay time for the same culture group to... Well, that's good. I think that's, again, related to sort of this, where eventually the cores go away on a province. So it sounds like as long as you've got the same culture group, and then it goes away faster, which makes sense. Again, you should be able to assimilate people of similar cultures a little bit easier. Again, I'm trying to go a little faster here. Comet sight is a bit more rare now. Thank God. I'm so happy. And apparently there's Scottish national idea that reduces the chance of comets, which wasn't working before. God, what a kick in the pants. And it has another option. So when you get the event, you'll have another button to click. I'm almost gonna guarantee that that button will still give -1 stability, because that's the way Paradox's humor works. You get lots of options, they all do the same thing. I like this idea. This, I think, is brilliant. Canceling vassalizations now creates a truce with the release state, which makes sense, because the way it used to be, you could break vassalization and instantly declare war. That was a strategy that France could use to try to sort of gobble up all of its minor states a lot faster, and it just seems silly to me. It should create an explicit truce. If you want to declare war instantly, then, you know, deal with a -5 stability hit. Canceling vassalization now only results in losing 25 prestige with no stability hit, and that's because now that you can't abuse, you know, break vassalization and attack, now they can't abuse that, it's safe to reduce the penalty a little bit, because, you know, there's very little incentive to ever do this, so it doesn't necessarily need a hard cost. At least I don't think there's an incentive to do it. This is very curious. Royal marriages will not break if a regent dies, so I guess your bloodlines just continue until you explicitly break a royal marriage agreement, which to me says, assuming it's still got the -1 stability hit, you really have to put extra thought than even before in terms of who you're going to have the royal marriages with, which you always had to put some thought into it. Now it's like forever. Some expansion. Subject nations can no longer sell provinces. Well, I guess so. That's actually really annoying that they could do that before. Huh. Opinion things. I think that was most of the big ones I'm going to talk about. There's tons. You should definitely read everything because there's a lot of little things all over that can tweak your things. And especially if you've played a nation before and you go and play it again, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of little balance fixes in here that are not explicit. Like, I'm pretty sure that pre-patch playing as England, you could go to one instantaneous war with Scotland and then vassalize them instantly. Now that's not the case. I might be wrong. There might be other things that happen. There may have been an event going on behind the scenes, but I'm sure that I've insta-vassaled Scotland before in a single war. And after the patch, it looks like the value of Scotland is 103 to vassalize, so you can't get them in a single war. Again, there may have been other things going on that I didn't see going on behind the scenes, either pre-patch or after the patch, but there may be little tweaks here and there, which you won't notice if you're playing a new nation that you hadn't played before. But little things, little opinion differences here and there is going to upset the sort of initial balance of how the initial set of alliances might break out and what you have to look for. The AI has been tweaked substantially in all kinds of different ways. We won't go through that, just to say that, hey, the AI is probably better. Some of these have to do with like the new features, but a lot of them are just various improvements. Better at using multiple colonists at once, no longer create more generals than it needs, smarter about where to assign their best leaders, and so on and so forth. A few things about events, their army, yeah, tons of AI fixes, tons of multiplayer fixes as well. Some out-of-sync errors have been corrected, and a few others here and there. Hopefully that makes things better. Interface improvements. I like that you can change your provincial capital names. That's very cool. I like that. And, oh yeah, Terra Incognita is now shown when loading save games. That's... Oh, I think as opposed to actually revealing the territory. It won't show you... It'll show you Terra Incognita where you only have Terra Incognita, so the fog of war, right? Fog of war is shown. That's what it basically means. I don't even know what this means. Right-click through map on combat interface? Like, little tweaks. We'll figure out how they go as they are, but I think this is going to... Like, this is a monstrously large patch. Monstrously large patch. Oh, I think at this point, have I gone into a new one? No, I think I'm still in the same... Yeah, this is all 1.4. Like, it just goes on and on and on and on. Unbelievable patch. So even if you don't have the cash to pick up Conquest of Paradise right now, you're still going to be playing an entirely new game with entirely new features, and that's the Paradox way. So, yeah, very excited for that. Very excited for that. Conquest of Paradise, again, the DLC itself is really important if you want randomized New World and the ability to play as a colonial nation. And, I'm honestly not sure what else is in there. There's probably a few things here and there. But I mean, if you've played Crusader Kings 2, it was the same way, right? They'd release patches that would unlock almost all of the features, except usually the ability to play as the thing itself. So, right? So the Trade Republic expansion for Crusader Kings 2 added Trade Republics to everyone, but you could only play as it if you bought the expansion itself. There are a few features here and there. Retinues, which are actually a really, really strong feature overall, you could only have if you actually had the expansion pack. That's the Orthodox one, whatever it's called. Oh my god, I can't remember the name of it. But that was a good one. Even if you didn't want to play as an Orthodox nation, it was a good expansion to buy so that you could unlock retinues, as an example. But overall, you do get a lot of stuff sort of for free in these patches. Just ridiculous. Basically, the patches are paid for by people who buy the expansions, but they do nice things for people who can't afford the expansions right away, maybe. That's it for this video. See you guys next time.